I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Happy New Year! Welcome to the Curb Your Enthusiasm After Show. The whole gang is back together. So excited to talk about the ugly section. And sitting here in the ugly section, myself, Christian Blatt, and the one, the only, new content every week, Flobo Boys.
I went up to the table, they told me go on this side so I know for sure where I stand.
Yeah, like you would have really thrown it off if you had sat next to either of the lovely co-panelists on the other
I don't know how to take this.
You should take it as a compliment. You are not on the ugly section.
Okay,
Thank
but
you.
that being the case, can we get our window over here then?
I know. It's a little stuffy.
Yeah.
It is a little sad. Hey, you know what? We started off in a studio that was the ugly section, and then we moved over here. James Maple!
Hi, everybody out
Fighting
there.
off his case of the coronavirus that he had last week.
I was out cold last week, but I'm back here to talk about Curb. Excited to be here and feeling much better.
And of course, Rachel Goodman.
Hey guys, I'm very excited to talk about what else? Bathrooms.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we've got bathrooms, we've got genitals, we've got funerals.
We've got magical bees.
We've got the jets, and I think if Flobo and I aren't careful, the whole show could turn into that.
True.
But overall thoughts on the episode, Rachel, I'll ask you first.
Oh, I thought this was hilarious. I was on board. I know last week we were kind of like, meh.
Yeah.
This week I thought was much funnier, and they just had some amazing, hysterical, comical moments that played out very well.
I agree with some of that. I definitely agree with last week. I personally was a little bit disappointed in this one, but there were definitely some funny moments. Yeah. We'll get into it. James, what did you think?
I loved it. You know, I'm like as a newcomer for the show, I'm always like every episode gets me more and more. I don't know what it is about. I don't know if it's just the season, but this whole restaurant. Like lingo and all this is happening within the series so far. I'm definitely digging because you guys know I work in restaurants.
Yeah.
So every time I see an episode like this, I'm always like, yo, that happened.
They get me. Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely dig this episode a lot.
Flobo?
I gotta say, I time shift the show. I don't watch it when it comes out, so sometimes I sit there and I watch it in the morning and go, hey, maybe some of the humor is being lost on me. That said, I thought this week was pretty cool. I didn't see where it was going, which is always a fun part of the show.
Sure,
It
absolutely.
seemed like, okay, it wasn't like last week where you knew this is setting up for this. It kind of had its own, unique cohesive story.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think for me, there were some really funny ideas in some of the beats. It definitely felt like another one of those episodes where I'm like, have I seen this before? You know, it was a little too familiar for me, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't still funny. And there's really so much to break down. We have some great guest casting in this episode. You have the pit bull of comedy himself, Bobby Slayton. He's the one who passes away, and Nick Kroll as the guy who runs the restaurant.
Tiato.
And Adrian Martinez also, who plays Harold, who's also Tookie on Stumptown, among other
I
things.
definitely didn't know
That's
any of those.
where it was
You
from.
just
Yeah.
used a lot of words, and I didn't know what any of them were.
Genuinely
I think I've heard of Stumptown, though. But
Yeah.
that is one of the shows that if you are a Stumptown fan, you can find Rachel doing the after show here
Yes.
at AfterBuzz TV. So I think that that's a great place to start. Is Carl, who, on the heel of a great golf game, he is he's in great spirits, and he does talk about his wife being his ex-wife, right? Or no, they're actually not divorced. She's just not happy with him.
And
So
we
that's.
don't know that yet.
We don't know that at the moment, yes. And I believe that the phrase magical vagina is said many times in this episode.
Quite a few.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
What do you mean magical?
Yeah, and I think it's very funny. And for me, my favorite moment where it was being discussed is when Larry goes over and talks to Susie and Ted Danson. Ted, who's disgusted with Larry for, a million reasons, but obviously his most recent annoyances all make perfect sense. And even Ted was like, wait, magical how? Yeah, like, tell me more about it.
Right.
Like, he's like, wait, we're talking as men now.
Right.
Yeah.
This is important.
And the funny thing is that he was trying to talk to Susie about getting back with Cheryl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, magical vagina's dropped, and he's like, but wait a minute. Who is this woman?
Yeah.
I don't blame the guy.
And of course, if we're talking about guest appearances, the great Jane Krakowski from
Yes.
Ally McBeal, but
30
I think
Rock.
30 Rock
30
is
Rock,
really
yeah.
what we think about
Yeah.
it at this point. So we'll go through and we'll get everybody's thoughts on magical vaginas and how they were used in the episode.
Finally!
But
I've been waiting.
this is why we signed up for the show.
Can I just say something about magical vaginas?
Absolutely.
You are
Please have the
entitled to.
authority. I'm saying
There's.
Use your authority.
Look, I don't want to make any assumptions. But there are three of us at this desk that definitely don't have one.
Yeah.
And, I could ask Hubby Joe, but he's not in the chat for our show. This is the only show that he doesn't come for the chat.
Of
That
course.
might be good.
Yeah.
Anyway, what were you going to say?
No, just that, and we were talking about this before the show, but I appreciate the fact that we finally got a comedy with dudes who are talking about sex, because I feel like there's a lot of female comedies out there. All they do, not all, but a lot of what they do is comment on guys and,
Sure.
Certain things about guys. And I'm like, okay, this is amazing, because you don't see this a lot with men actually discussing these things in a lighter way.
Yeah, I think that it is a topic that in 2020 maybe people are more inclined to stay away from.
I agree.
In the media, obviously in real life, sure.
Yeah.
The fellas might have a conversation reminiscent to that one.
At the golf course.
Yeah, but
Yeah, well, that I wouldn't know. But maybe outside the movie theater.
Right,
That's
right,
where
right.
Perhaps.
Exactly.
what were you gonna say, Rachel?
No, just that the way that they did it, though, it's okay. So, normally in my experience, when I'm watching anything, if it's guys talking about sex, there's a more crass way about it.
Okay, yeah,
Sure.
I
This
agree.
felt like a lighter, more comedic version of maybe, it felt like the female counterpart of what I see in female comedies, except from a male's perspective.
Right.
And so that I appreciated. I was like, okay, this isn't crass, it's not offensive, but it's also hilarious.
It is interesting though that he did. Carl, Bobby Slayton's character, does decide to I shouldn't have said anything.
Yeah.
Because even he realizes wait, why am I telling these guys this?
Right.
I guess you're just so proud, that that's just like blindly playing the stock market. You don't know if you're gonna get magical, and he felt like he did. And look, the guy has so much suffering in his life. He needed to have something good.
Yeah.
I mean, especially with the Jets.
I mean, if you're gonna be a Jets fan, you deserve.
You gotta have the yin and the yang.
Yeah, you deserve to. Yeah, because what is he? Does he say it that except for 1969 and maybe that one
was
year
Larry.
that Parcells coached? Yeah. Oh yeah, because Larry also was talking about it. Yeah. And I liked how much the Jets factored into the story and teasing forward a little bit. I believe that'll come up in our news, right? Flobo, as someone who is also from New York, whether you have the misfortune of being a Jets fan or not, did that strike close to home?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I quit the Jets back in 1999, or no, 2003, excuse me. I quit the Jets and became a Houston Texans fan for that reason, because that team every year gives me disappointment, which I thought was amazing, because you have this situation, people will say, it's just sports, it's just football, why do you care? But you attach yourself to it, and every year you're like, oh, maybe next year will be better, but just get that suffering, that loss. I thought I could felt that. I thought as a Jets fan, as a Mets fan, I just felt it.
That was the point I was going to make. Look, if you're a Mets fan, you can only take on so much.
Yeah.
Like, you've already done that. It's almost like if you're a Mets fan, it's like, I should probably just jump over to the Giants because they won those 2 Super Bowls. It's easier.
It totally is.
What do
You
you
can't-
need that in your life for?
Can't be sad all year round.
And unfortunately, they don't have a pro basketball team in New York anymore, so you don't have to worry about rooting for the NBA.
Yikes.
But
Hot take.
Hey,
But yes.
hey, I will never give up on the Yankees, so.
Why would you?
Damn, yeah.
Why would you give up on the Yankees? What's to give up on? That's the coldest take anyone has ever had. Really, you might not give up on the Yankees. If they win 30 championships, maybe I'll say, okay, boys,
You won me
enough.
over.
You have enough.
That's too funny.
Yeah, that's like I'm gonna vote for the price of gold. I think gold is
It's
going
really
well.
giving me
Yeah.
good vibes this year.
Anyway, got a little derailed on that topic.
I'm just saying, you can't say that New York doesn't have its teams.
No, of course New York has its teams, but if
When you pick the wrong one, you get made fun of all the time.
if you want to build character, yeah. And by the way, they don't have there's not a hockey team that you can pick and feel good about.
No,
you know?
I'm an Islanders fan. I disappoint every year. See, it's just a cycle of
You just-
disappointment.
You just like drew all the bad straws.
I know, man. I came at the wrong time.
All right, we got to
It
get
is
back
very
on
distinct.
topic here. And I thought it was funny how much it came up, and the role it played in I almost called him Bobby, in Carl's death, and just sort of bringing up the Jets so many times throughout the episode. I thought was very funny, and I found it to be fascinating. You can tell that this is Larry David's show and that Larry David is a billionaire because he has no trouble getting women to talk to him. He has no trouble getting women to go out with him.
Even at a funeral.
Even at a funeral, yeah.
Yeah, he's always working it.
Yeah.
You know?
I noticed that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Even when he gives the worst pickup lines or, makes someone take his gum,
Yeah.
he just gets them all.
It works.
As a kid, I felt the same about Seinfeld before that. I was like,
Yeah.
Jerry gets all the ladies. He doesn't even, touch their
Yeah,
shirt
but
right.
I mean, compared to Larry, look at Jerry. He's got
True. I
he's
mean,
got
back
hair.
then- back then-
Well, he doesn't have as much hair as he used to, though. Jerry's got a lot
Hair
less.
is not beauty, okay? I don't know why we're talking about that.
That's true. Wow, that's true. Even though they're on the beautiful side of the fence.
You guys are exceptional.
You know, let's rearrange. I think hair that is the only requirement. I should be okay. So let's get everybody's thoughts on Larry's interactions with Jane Krakowski. What did you think, James?
I thought that I kind of agree with you wholly. It was one of those things where I was like, "Yo, is he spitting game at a funeral right now? Is it working?" I was genuinely shocked by that. Another point that I wanted to call out was when Larry walks over to Ted and Susie, and they're talking about the magical vagina. You can see her sitting across the way, like kind of flirting, being like, "Yeah, I got that magic." Yeah, I was like, "Yo!" But this entire episode, I had to give him some props because I was kind of shocked at the level of game Larry has had in this episode, but also in other episodes as well. But it was pretty shocking, man. He's spitting some. I can learn a thing or three from that man.
At least, normally when Larry is flirting, he is just really stumbling over his own words and just making an ass of himself. But in this case, he actually went over to Veronica and was saying all the right things for the most part, outside of asking about the handles on the coffin. But for the most part, he actually seemed like he was genuinely saying the right things, which is exactly why she ended up saying she'd go out with him. But I actually thought that it was kind of endearing to see him act this way until the Jets.
Which
And the 500.
I
that's
think
the
that's
part that
both
got
of
me.
those things. There's a couple of things there. Yeah. So I think it is very funny that Veronica, Jane Krakowski's character, her after the funeral, after her husband takes his own life, there's the realization that you know what, it really wasn't good anyway. So it all happened so quickly, and even for this show, I was impressed. Even if it's a week later, it still all seems really fast. But they do play it up the right way. It's like, well, she wasn't happy, and then it's like, all right, I guess she's moving on. And I thought, Flobo, it's such a very Larry moment that everything is going so well at the house. He's there. He will probably get to determine for himself, was Carl right about the magical vagina? He's wrong about football.
Right.
So maybe he's a bad judge. He was going to get to find out. But Larry can't help himself, can he, Flobo?
He can't. Let's talk about. I really thought they could have taken a left turn there, the proposition of the $500. But I got to say this. That was awkward to watch. It was pretty awkward to watch. Not a fan of it. But
You didn't like watching him ask for the $500.
Well, because it was the pretense of it all. So you have this thing hanging around about this magical vagina, right? His guy's owed something. I was thinking, oh no, please don't let that be. Okay, he's just a jerk. All right, fine. This is great. You know what I mean? But the whole thing was just awkward. He had to kick out of the house for it. So I don't know.
Yeah, he did. He was forced to leave, which again, that is But even before that, she was already annoyed because he had brought up the Jets.
True.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, for the Jets.
Larry needs to bring up the $500 because the losing. I don't know what you call it. It's not really a team in golf, is it?
Right.
I don't know.
The round.
The losers had to pay the winners $500, and then we find out about the club. Which, by the way, the mugging of Richard Lewis was so odd.
Right?
That he had that mask on, and it's like I thought he was going to recognize him.
I thought the
because
same thing,
like the
too.
guy's voice, and I was like, all right, something's going to come of this. And I'm like, oh no, it just I don't know. Sometimes things don't go where you expect them to on the show, and it's fine.
True.
But I was just like, I just thought there was more to that. It was just so weird.
I thought it was Jeff at first.
I thought the same thing
thought
too.
it was Jeff?
I
Yeah,
thought it
when
was
he went to
too.
the door, I was like,
in
what?
fact, I really think it might be.
I
That would be fascinating wondering if that was Jeff.
I really thought, I don't know, it was like the facial structure and the voice a little bit, and I expected them to have this, like, wait a
the
second.
voice did sound familiar, but I couldn't place
I feel like they just didn't want to hire an extra that day. Like,
He
Jeff put
hopped
on
out
his
super
mask.
quick. Like, oh, I handle this. Like, wait, what?
It probably was.
I think so.
Yeah, and also I just had a feeling that, like, I was surprised that he didn't get to run away with the golf clubs either. I thought that he was actually going to get them, and that that's where they were heading with this, but
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, no. So instead, it just costs Larry. It costs him dearly. I mean, not only is he still out $500, but he has now not experienced magical vagina.
Right.
That
Even-
he was so close.
Even Sam has experienced the magical vagina.
Yep.
True.
And Sam would
Little
be Sam would be the doctor's son.
Son.
The
Yes,
son,
yes.
yeah, who's
The-
a senior in high school.
Yes, and of course the doctor, Dr. Winokur.
Winokur, I think
Yeah,
is how they
is
pronounced
of
it.
course played by Ed Begley Jr. So this is Skylar he's from Stumptown, that kid, or who's
No,
No,
Adrian Martinez plays Tookie on Stumptown.
okay. So this kid who is the doctor's son, who is that? Is that somebody we recognize or we don't know? That
No,
kid?
no, I don't
I just assumed they found him on UCB.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I just I was confused when we were talking earlier. I thought it was just somebody I didn't know.
Oh,
Okay.
no,
Some like really good.
I thought
info.
that the kid was very funny. You know, he's like, you should get that rash looked at. It's like, yeah, okay, but you know what? I'm gonna go check a doctor.
Yeah.
You know, I think Larry handled that the way we all would. Wouldn't you agree, Rachel?
Yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
mean,
it's like you're the doctor's kid, but it's like, okay, well, you know, I'll ask
Yeah.
a real doctor. But by the way, what was with that rash?
I
Like,
mean-
where had Larry been? That
And why was
happened?
it spreading?
Yeah.
Veronica had something like it when they went to dinner, right?
Yeah.
And they had it. He got it right after the restaurant. So I thought it was something up with the food. I thought that
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
even Nick Kroll's character had potentially done it on purpose.
Well,
to
I hear the
Larry.
food in that section is pretty gross, so you probably got something
Yeah.
from the ugly
Oh,
section.
I did not say that. Oh, well, I have eczema too. I have very mild form of eczema, and sometimes when you have it, when you have stress, it flares up. So I was thinking with latte Larry's and everything going on, that was what was causing it. But I mean, it's kind of weird if you ate something and
Do
it
you
kind of rash.
typically ask your doctor's son how it's going? If there's a flare up, can you ask him to write your
not
prescription?
At all. I mean,
Oh,
I think
you
he has
haven't done that?
daughters, but I wouldn't ask
Well, you
him.
could ask that. You know, yeah,
It's in the blood.
I did think it was very funny to bring it around that that he was able to confirm the magic. We've touched on it a few times. We've touched on Nick Kroll and the fact that he, at least up until the point where he had to admit it, he denied that there was an attractive section, and as the episode is called, the ugly section. It was very clear that was going on at the ugly section.
Yeah.
I did think it was funny how when Veronica shows up, he's ready to seat her in the attractive section, but then Larry shows up. It's like, oh, he brings you down so much.
Yeah.
that you have to go over
put
there.
you over here.
And yet Ted Danson, so handsome that it doesn't
With
even matter that
Susie.
Susie's there. Let's be honest. You know,
Susie's a dime.
a table with Susie and Larry, I think they'd be in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
So I did think it was very funny, and we definitely need to talk about just the simple fact that Nick Kroll is the second person who needs to go to the bathroom so badly that he has to get rid of people. And Rachel, we were talking earlier. This is something that you are surprised by.
Well, so one, I almost felt like between the rash and Nick Kroll running into the bathroom, I almost felt like something had been put in the food or something. Nick Kroll, like the character, he just seemed like he was
Something had gone wrong.
Yeah, like some kind of laxative was in his food.
Yeah.
Just the way that he was acting. Or maybe he just really had to go. But the whole thing is that it's a public bathroom. I get it. He didn't, considering how he had to go to the bathroom, this isn't just a pee, but I get the fact that he'd want to be alone, but also it's a public restroom.
Yeah.
This
Look,
isn't your house.
it does incite performance anxiety sometimes if it's a full bathroom.
And this is why we should, I don't know if you guys are familiar with bathrooms in Europe, but they are actually, they're all closed off, so you can't see in between stalls, unlike American bathrooms. So maybe I can see his point in this case.
Yeah, bathroom elitist over here.
I know, right?
Savages in America.
I did think it was funny that it got Larry into the attractive section. The thinking is that he will now forever be in the attractive section.
Yeah.
And then earlier when Larry was standing at Ted's table, he's like, Mr. David, your table's waiting for
I
you.
know,
Because you've been
that's so
standing
funny.
there for
It's
too
like,
long.
okay, you're bringing up the rest of us down. And move it along.
And of course, I thought all of the Nick Kroll stuff was great. This came after the fact that Larry needed to get the bathroom attendant to step out. And Larry took it pretty far, which he's inclined to. What did you think of his interactions with the bathroom attendant, James?
Before I answer that question, I want to tell you guys a quick story. I have a friend, I'm going to call you out, Nathan Sims, that I worked with in a restaurant years ago.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
Thank
so
you.
I don't know. I'm not asking your all's personal thing with this, but I remember we worked together. We had to go to the bathroom, and we went into the bathroom, and I could hear him doing a lot of shuffling in there. I'm like, Nathan, are you okay? So Nathan has this neuroses where he has to take off all of his clothes to go number 2 in the bathroom.
Wow.
Oh.
All of his clothes, socks.
What years is he be so upset?
No, I'm the entire time we're watching this, I'm like, Nathan his head would explode if he had to go through this situation with the bathroom attendant. Because he literally has to take off all his clothes to go to the bathroom and put them back on. I thought that was it was racing through my head the entire time.
That is very odd. But can he then perform with someone else in the stall next to him?
I left after he told me that, so I'm assuming no.
Yeah, you'll stick around.
Yeah,
No. Yeah, just keep going. There's not enough clothes on in this room. Yeah.
But I think that of course Larry went above and beyond when it came to the whole needing to leave. I, for one, personally, will hold it as long as I have to until I get to the comfort of my 4 walls.
Sure.
But sometimes that's not possible.
Sometimes it's not possible. I don't think I would ask anybody to leave. I mean, no.
I mean, not at a public restaurant.
No, it's public. It's something we all do.
mean, it's easy. You can flush.
Yeah.
And then no one hears.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think there's a difference. If I'm at a Target or a Starbucks, it's way different than having an attendant there who is paid to stand there. And you're like, well, I have to tip you now after you would just heard everything else.
And I think
it
Larry
creates a really awkward interaction.
I think Larry said it best too. He was when he gave Nick Kroll the ultimatum of having the bathroom attendant come back at a better position. He was like, you could have just gone in there and locked the door. I wouldn't want to stick around and listen to you handle your business anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, I did think that part was funny, and I thought that I don't know, Larry did have some truths. Look, I don't go to the kind of places where it makes sense to have a bathroom attendant, and when they do, you're like, come on, this isn't that nice of a place.
Yeah.
And you feel bad because the person's, the gentleman's job is to sit in a bathroom all day. So you definitely feel bad.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, I was already in. I gave you $1 the last time.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to dry my hands on my pants because I don't want to have to.
He's like, but I have mints and I
know, and I don't want the mints.
I don't want the
I'm glad you
mouthwash.
have I'm glad you have a cup of scope that I hope.
It's fresh.
I hope, but I don't know.
Nice tie you're wearing. Nice tie.
Yeah, I was just like, I don't.
The cologne you have is clashing with what I'm wearing now. It's too much.
Yeah,
Too much.
so I mean, I understand the sentiment of it, but of course, Larry went too far.
It was lost on
I
everyone.
am glad that he was able to get him a better job.
Yeah.
Because that is not always the case.
By getting him fired first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Larry getting you fired does not necessarily translate.
I love how he walked around of all the scenes with little mints in his pocket. He's like, yeah, I got this for you.
That was great. I did really enjoy.
brother.
That was actually one of my favorite things in the episode. Is that he always had mints for everyone. I thought that was.
That's a
I
nice
thought that
one.
was
It's a little slide you a little something for your help. For your brother over there.
Yeah.
My pusher man.
We touched on the handles at the coffin, and how he needs them for Latte Larry's. We're getting very close to the opening for Latte Larry's, and we also only have 3 more episodes left.
Looks that way.
Yeah.
Was
3.
this 6? This was 7.
7.
So
7.
yeah, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so we only have 3 more episodes. Latte Larry's is gonna have to open.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you would hope.
Absolutely
Oh my gosh, what if it doesn't?
It's frustrating.
Yeah,
Everything but the coffee's being discussed in the show by that coffee shop.
That's all right. The coffee, it's really
And it's a spite store at the end of the day.
Right.
It's
There's no
not
beverages being sold.
Yeah. It's mostly just to give you that merchandise jab.
Yeah. Let's backtrack to why Richard Lewis was carjacked. Now, the theory that it may or may not have been Jeff is a valid one. Let's just assume it wasn't. driving around in a Bentley is basically asking to be robbed. What do you think of that? I'm sure, Rachel, you grew up driving around in a Bentley. Did you always feel like,
How did you know?
Going to Iggy games in your Bentley.
She had all those World Series rings. She had to keep them safe.
European bathrooms.
I was always having the best luck.
European bathrooms. Yeah, that's a great point.
I call BS on that, considering all the Bentleys and fancy cars in general I see in LA. They are
I
not.
thought you were going to say that you ride around with all of your fancy showbiz friends.
Well,
This is my 2005 Bentley.
Yeah.
It's a no-go.
Yeah, that old piece of junk.
I have told people it's one of the cars that my wife and I have. We got from her father. Gave it to us. I'm like, it's a Lexus, but it's a '98. I've actually said it. Yeah. It makes a difference. It's got a tape deck in it. It's not like a Lexus.
Yeah,
It's
a very Seinfeld type discussion.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, does anyone feel that Larry's right about the Bentley? I mean, clearly it was as illustrated.
I thought you were going to say something.
So you called BS on it.
I call BS because there's just too many. I mean, just living here I've been here 4 years now. And yeah, there are very nice cars that just randomly like there's too many nice cars for that to be a target here.
Yeah,
it's LA.
I think you're right. If this show didn't take place in LA, I'd be like, okay, maybe, because the ratio of seeing like nice cars to regular cars is far different from Los Angeles. It's like every fourth car is a Bentley or like some like expensive Mercedes or something like that. So
I mean, where I'm from in Philadelphia, there are areas if you're driving a Bentley, sure, your car's gonna get jacked up.
At either Pat's or Gino's.
Yeah, either way.
Either way, it's not one or the other.
Not
either
LA.
one, it's going.
that's a Philly reference.
I
get it.
And neither Pat's or Gino's is good.
That's what everybody says. But it's like if you're gonna go once, just go to one of those. It's not like it's bad. It's just
not bad. It's just not as good as D'Alessandro's.
But everybody says, we have to move off this topic because Ryan's going to give us four cheesesteak places that are better than D'Alessandro's. Am I right, Ryan? I bet you disagree with it.
Max's.
Yeah. Max's. I've never even heard of Jim's. I've never even heard of Max's. Anyway.
I was going to say that usually Bentleys are driven by somebody else. That's why I was
great point.
Good point.
Yeah, I know. It's true. The visual of Richard Lewis driving a car, of him walking around, of him eating, of him breathing, it's all very hard for me to take.
I know. It's like
he's looking extra frail this episode.
This season, and it's been a few years since the last season, but at this point I really only see him on this show. I'm not trying to discredit his career in any way.
Right.
It's just that's where I see him, and you're just like, is he okay?
There was a moment in the Bentley where he was getting robbed, and he's like, roll on the window. He's like, I don't know where the window button is.
With his Skeletor fingers.
I couldn't assume where that button would be. I'm like, is he of sound in mind? Is he okay?
The answer is, well, he's definitely not of body. I think that summarizes our thoughts on the episode. Before we get to our regular segment, our Curb Correction Corner, we do have some news from the news desk at Flobito.com.
Coming to you live from the ugly section, today's news of Curb Your Enthusiasm. For those Jets fans and football fans in general, Curb Your Enthusiasm actually made a reference to Deshaun Watson, current star quarterback for the Houston Texans. While it was used as an example for the Jets' ongoing futility, it's always great to see that pop culture and Curb Your Enthusiasm is weaved. This article comes from the Chronicle, Houston Chronicle. Check it out to see more about that.
Now, you said all that as though you were reading it off a teleprompter.
Yeah.
I'm sitting right here. I'm looking. I'm like, where's he reading this
I
from?
thought the same thing.
You had all that in your head?
Yeah, man.
Why are you not doing play-by-play for the XFL? I know you're a fan. I know you're a fan.
Hire me, man.
I don't know why you're a fan, but I know you're a fan.
Go Guardians.
That was great.
So I love that. All right, so our Curb Correction Corner, in case you are new to the show, that is where we can agree with a lot of the things that Larry says and does, but, there's always going to be something where he goes too far. And we each go through and we pick something that is the most egregious. It's not always Larry, but that's usually the starting point. It's usually Larry, but it can be from someone else in the show. So, Rachel, what was your Curb Correction Corner for this installment?
The moment with Veronica in the house where he literally starts asking about the $500.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, come on. She is still grieving. Like, this is, obviously not that much that she's going out on dates with Larry and they're about to have sex, but the fact that he would even mention it, like, I don't even understand what his, he doesn't need the money.
Look,
that's the whole thing.
He's Larry David, so for him to make $500, hold on. He just made $500.
3
Yep.
seconds.
3 seconds.
Yeah.
That's probably all it takes.
Yeah.
But
Oprah money.
I understand with him. It's always the principle of the thing, but really, he was just blinded by that because
Yeah.
he was in a great spot, and
he blew it.
He definitely blew it. James, Curb Crouchy Corner.
I have to say this week I'm gonna go with the whole like ugly section, pretty section thing. I thought that was interesting, and I don't really think that happens, but it was just funny how Larry thought he saw something, and then he made it to a thing, and it became a bigger thing, and a bigger thing, and a bigger thing, and then it turns out he was right. The ultimate like climactic moment was when Nick Kroll.
Now, you've talked about working in restaurants a number of times. Do you feel like the maybe less attractive people, let's just put it this way, the least attractive people, the Flobo Voices, do they get set all the way in the back? Like, do you put them next to the door of the kitchen? Like,
I will say that I don't think that that's true.
Okay.
I think it boils down to people who spend money. So I have found that people who have will spend like a bunch of money on like a big nice bottle of wine or something like that. They put them in the front. So when passerbyers go by, it's kind of like with hotels. They always put like the really nice cars on the roundabout.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
people are like, oh, so and so's driving a Bentley and staying here.
I'm
So
still
I
back.
found
my
them do
my
that.
98 Lexus is not out there.
It's Alexis.
This is a 98.
One little hot take though, I was thinking about. We live in Los Angeles. I was thinking about the casting that happened for like the pretty section versus the ugly section. Like, what did that look like when they were like had the actors come in like, okay, you're gonna be over there.
Come
you
on,
got the
please.
glasses. You're
To
over
be
there.
fair, the ugly
No.
section, not
They
that ugly.
probably actually cast it as, hey, you're gonna play an ugly person.
I think so.
Yeah, I can. I'm like 98 just from doing a lot of background work,
Yeah.
and I just know that's probably how.
Welcome
they
to
cast.
Hollywood.
Yeah. And they weren't even unattractive. That's the
No,
whole
none of
joke.
them. None of them were.
No, but I mean, some of them they put in like really funny sweaters.
Yeah,
but
yeah. There's
That's
a bunch of glasses
that's
too.
what
I
makes
was
it-
like,
yeah, glasses.
What's that?
I guess, I'm sorry, James, but I guess that's what you're trying to say is glasses make the people
I've been
look ugly.
demoted.
Anyway, before we run out of time, Flobo,
Just
Curb
real
Crouchy
quick,
Corner.
the moment he walked in the cute section and was like high-fiving people was amazing. I
yeah.
laughed
That
out
was
loud.
good. You're right. That was great.
Well, the one thing I actually think I would not do is when he dismissed the advice from the doctor's son. I know on the surface it's like, oh, I'll do the same thing, but what's Yelp? What's WebMD?
Yeah.
Those are strangers. We do it all the time.
Yeah,
Why not
true.
listen to somebody who's kind of more informed than strangers?
Yeah, and I think that for me, it was, he started from a point that I can agree with the bathroom attendant, but it just went so far. And it's softened a little bit because he did get him a better job. He actually got him out of the bathroom.
True.
So grand scheme of things, his life is better, but he got him fired because it's like, here's $20. He's like, all right. So yeah, I think that's the thing that I initially was on board, and that's usually what happens with this segment. It starts with a kernel of an idea where I'm like, okay, I guess. And then it goes so far. I'm like, nope.
I'm out.
All right, that is our show for this week. But tune in next week to see if anyone moves over to the attractive section. We'll see.
Or the other way around.
Maybe Flobo gets a hat. We'll find out what happens. But until then, till next week at Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, you can keep in touch with social media. Rachel, where do they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Rach Goodman or my author Instagram account at Rachel Radner Author. You can also see me on the Stumptown, Outlander, and the Narcos Mexico Season 2 panel.
And James Maple.
You can follow your boy James Maple at Terrell James Maple on all platforms. Holla at me, I'll holla back.
And Flobo, I've never heard your plug before, so go ahead.
Should I holla at PM too?
Yeah.
Flobo Boys, you can follow me on Twitter at Flobo Boys, on Instagram at Flobito, and of course, Flobito.com.
New content every week!
Yes!
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And if you're mildly interested in politics, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Pacific, that's 11 Eastern, we'll be doing a special Super Tuesday installment of the Trump Report right here on AfterBuzz TV. Please tune in. But until then, we'll see you next weekend. Happy New Year!
Bye.
Cubes.
Our founder, Keven Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.